Hey guys, welcome back to Musings of Mavry, where today we're going to be finishing up Goblin Slayer, the final episode. So, it's 2019 now, and Happy New Year to all you guys out there. Goblin Slayer is pretty much the last anime we're going to be wrapping up before we move to the next season. Now, I apologize as I was on hiatus. This channel was on hiatus for the past few days. I was on vacation, so I couldn't really see the last episode of Goblin Slayer as well, but hey, late's better than never, right? So, anyways, last time when we left off Goblin Slayer, we were wrapping up, or we were going into the village arc, or village invasion arc, I guess you could say, of Goblin Slayer, where Goblin Slayer recruited a bunch of adventurers to fend off a incoming goblin horde of a few hundred goblins, more or less. And last we left off, we see Goblin Slayer chasing off after what I assume to be the Goblin Lord, I guess. I don't think they really say, but judging from the context, I'm assuming that that's the Goblin Lord. So let's see how they are going, because the attack was pretty much already repelled about 80%, I guess, except for a few hobgoblins and champions still left over. So I'm curious to see what they're going to do in the last episode, as well as see if there's any chance to, have a next season. So, without further ado, let us jump right into the episode and begin in 3, 2, 1, play. Yeah, goblins definitely come from the Green Moon. What the heck? Goblin Slayer. I still really don't understand about his eye. I saw somebody comment that the eye was just a manifestation of his anger and hatred, but somehow that doesn't seem right. Like, isn't there more to it? Any case, let me skip this opening first, and I'll see you guys right in a second. And we are back. The fate of an adventurer. Okay. So I was wondering whether the Goblin Lord himself had the ability to fight by himself, or if he was more of a leader type of monster. But that answers the question. Ooh. Direct hit. Paste. So, Goblin Slayer typically has some kind of plan, right? I'm assuming he's not just heading to fight one-on-one with the Goblin Lord. Oh, hey. It's the two newbies. And I believe that's his first goblin kill? Yeah. Congratulations. Yeah, like I was saying, the Goblin Slayer typically has some sort of backup plan with him. He's not the type to just go and one-on-one or heads up to, especially, I'm assuming that the Goblin Lord has some special abilities or is more of a nuisance than just a normal goblin, right? Yeah. So once these guys take out the hobgoblins and champions, then it's pretty much done. Ooh. Spear guy? Oh no, he took care of it himself. I guess that's the difference between a silver rank adventurer and a newbie. If he was a newbie, he probably would have been ambushed already. Now that makes me wonder, are hobgoblins and champions also worth only 1 gold each? You would think they'd be worth more, right? Badass. I'm noticing that this series seems to like to use the juxtaposition of the Green Moon with the goblins a whole lot. This is like the third or fourth scene with that already. Hmm? Ouch. Well, if you have any tricks up your sleeve, it's time to use it. This seems so out of character for a Goblin Slayer. Like just rushing headstrong into a battle one-on-one? Alright. And see, there's the Green Moon again. Oh hey, Priestess. I was wondering where she was. So I'm guessing she was worried about Goblin Slayer, so she came to save him? Wait, what? Oh, two protection. You can use it like that? Well, that's creative. Seriously? You're trying to appeal to her after Everything you've done. Ooh. So I'm assuming this was when the Goblin Lord was just a normal goblin or something? A Goblin Slayer? Yep. Is it over? It's over. Oh, so this was part of his plan. Okay, I was wondering why Goblin Slayer just went off seemingly without a plan. So Priestess was his plan. I guess that kind of makes sense. But that's a hell of a lot of trust put into the Priestess. And there's that moon again. Why do they keep on referencing the green moon? And now you made her cry. Yeah. Yeah, because if you think about it, there's so many adventurers there who are of higher rank than Priestess who could have helped. But he chose the Priestess. I guess it kind of makes things come full circle, right? We started off the series with Goblin Slayer and Priestess, and now with this finale, we're ending with Goblin Slayer and Priestess. Although I seriously thought for a moment there that Priestess was the one who went off searching for Goblin Slayer. And that would have been a cool contrast, right? So, in the first episode, Goblin Slayer saves Priestess, and then in the last episode, Priestess saves Goblin Slayer. But it does make more sense that Goblin Slayer has a plan. And who are you guys? Who are you? Save the world? Are you a hero? Oh wait, are you guys the heroes that they were talking about a few episodes back? I seem to recall that I saw them appear in a previous episode. I'm gonna have to go check in a moment. Well, I guess that answers the question. Aw. Speaking of which, the Adventurers Guild did pay for this expedition in a way, right? Like I mentioned in the last episode, they posted the 1 gold coin bounty. Of what? Oh, so that was a callback to one of the questions in the previous episodes. Coming in adventure. Good morning. Well, technically, Goblin Slayer was the one who gave the finishing blow, but eh. He came as soon as he could, didn't he? Hmm. That makes sense. Because he was afraid that even if he posted the quest, nobody would respond. So him just trying to gather people directly, at least he would have known who would come and who wouldn't. Are you trying to say something? A date? Take off your helmet? Oh, okay. Yeah, I was wondering, haven't you seen him completely naked before? And you're telling me, wait, are we going to see Goblin Slayer's face? Any second now. Hello? Everybody wants to see his face. Well, I don't blame him. I want to see his face too. Will you move the damn camera? Oh. Are we gonna see his face like on the very last shot? Well, you have. Yes. Okay, now? Seriously? Come on. Well, I guess in the end, what it actually was, what the whole series was about, was essentially Goblin Slayer learning to trust people again, in a way. Yeah, because due to the attack on his village, at first he didn't trust in adventures anymore, and so now he's restored his faith in humanity, I guess, and that would be the character development. I don't know, let me talk more in the review part. I'm gonna skip ahead and see if there's some more left, and if not, I'll see you guys right after the ending credits. And there are some parts after the ending credits, so let's see. Some closing thoughts, or what? So again with the gods, this reminds me, in the first few episodes, maybe first 4 or 5 episodes, they always opened the episode talking about the gods and rolling dice. And I kept on thinking whether it has any deeper meaning besides just being some flavor text. Yeah, see, let the gods roll the dice. But I'm still not sure if it's actually going to go anywhere. Well, that was a fitting teaser to the ending of Goblin Slayer if I ever saw one. Straight to the point and no nonsense at all. But anyways, we're now in the review part of Goblin Slayer episode 12. As I usually do these kinds of things, I will focus on the episode and not the season as a whole. That one, I might do a complete review of the series later on if I find enough topics and I have the time to do that. For right now, I'm just going to focus on episode 12. So, I think the first part I want to talk about is obviously the fight with the Goblin Lord. Now, in the end, during the whole fight, I was thinking to myself, like, why is Goblin Slayer acting so out of character and fighting him head on? And as it turns out, he did have a backup plan, or actually, I shouldn't even say it as a backup plan. That was his plan all along, right? To use Priestess, use himself as sort of like a decoy or diversion, and then allow Priestess to use 2 or 3 protection barriers to kind of sandwich the Goblin Lord and immobilize him and kill him. So that was a very creative use. Um, I'm I was actually more hoping to, as a sort of callback to episode 1, for Priestess herself to have came out, come looking for Goblin Slayer, and then thought of this kind of creative way of using protection and then allowing the story to come full circle, right? Because in the first episode, she was saved by Goblin Slayer, whereas here I feel like it would be fitting if here in this finale it would instead be the Priestess saving Goblin Slayer's ass. Although now that I know that the events of this entire series so far, this entire season, only happened in one volume, I guess that's kind of a too big of a leap for a priestess, right? She's a complete novice. I don't think she can develop to the point where she's out there saving a silver ranked adventure like Goblin Slayer. So, in the end, I thought to myself, okay, this probably doesn't make sense, and this was the best way that they could have resolved it, allowing them to show that yes, priestess has kind of grown to be a dependable ally, right? Because, like as I said, Goblin Slayer, out of all these adventures, decided to pick priestess to carry out this plan with him. That obviously means that he places a lot of trust in her. So that in itself is already character development. So, all in all, I think it was a pretty good method of utilizing priestess here as a means to end off the Goblin Lord. Although, maybe he could have done it without taking such a big beating. I don't know. I guess you have to make the stakes higher somehow, right? So, and then, yeah, after the Goblin Lord's killed, and then we were all happy dandy. I'm not gonna touch too much about, Goblin Slayer's dialogue with Cowgirl. I don't think there's too much to comment on. As I mentioned in the closing thoughts of the tavern scene, it really seems like this entire series so far has been essentially Goblin Slayer learning to trust in his companions, or learning to trust in other adventures or other people, right? So I really liked how in the end, it was Priestess that says, yes, this is not luck, you can place your trust in us, you should learn to, place trust in your companions or other adventures more. He was sort of, he underwent trauma in the past because, when he was a child, his village got raided, and then everybody got killed, and, been done things what goblins do, right? And so he decided to not trust anybody anymore and just trust in himself. But now it seems that he can regain a little faith in humanity, and that there will be people who would be willing to help in times of need. Although, again, if we think back to last episode, most of the adventurers also needed some kind of excuse to actually participate in this goblin slaying. So in the end, it was essentially the guild, as I kept mentioning, who facilitated this whole thing. But hey, it's a nice point, right? It's a nice ideal that Goblin Slayer is able to place his trust in others more. So then we get a little foreshadowing of including the hero. So I went back and checked, and those 3 chicks are the heroes. They were talked about briefly in episode 6, where they said that they slayed the Demon Lord. I had kind of thought that was sort of just some nonsense insert or something, or it was an exaggerated story, but as it turns out, yes, it was these 3 that slayed the Demon Lord. Not quite sure if their paths are going to cross with Goblin Slayer anytime soon, but we still have a lot of material to cover, right? So again, this brings me to the next point, and that is we have the teaser for another season of Goblin Slayer. Now, whether or not that's just a generic teaser to keep, leave it open-ended for the possibility of a sequel, or are we actually going to get a second season, I don't know. So after doing some researching, I found out that this series essentially only covers Volume 1 and Volume 2 of the light novels, and of which currently there are, I believe, 9 or 10 out there already. So originally I was thinking to myself, like, how are they going to actually continue the story, right? It seems that we've already known about all the different levels and ranks of the goblins. You have the normal goblins, you have the shamans, and then you also have the hobgoblins, champions, the lords. Are there any other goblins? If not, then we've pretty much covered all the bases, right? And I feel like there's only so much you can do with a character whose only concern is to kill goblins. Like, there's only so many creative ways you can use to kill goblins before it kind of gets repetitive. It was already starting to get a little repetitive within this season. But since we have another 7 or 8 volumes of material, I'm assuming that the author has done something in order to further expand the story. Maybe touch on a little bit more on the world mechanics, which personally I was hoping to see a lot more of within this series. Like, I'm a sucker for this kind of world mechanic kind of thing. Like, what is the world setting? How you utilize magic? How do you utilize different classes? What are the progressions? Stuff like that. We didn't really get to see much of that here. We only know that there are adventurer ranks, and we kind of have an idea of how the spell system works, but for the most part, it was pretty straightforward, and most of the, I guess, difference came in how Goblin Slayer utilized his wits and his wisdom to utilize different kinds of methods to kill goblins, essentially. So I guess that's something that they can touch on in another season. Also, well, obviously there's also the story of the Green Moon, right? Like, goblins come from there. I expect that to have to be resolved eventually, right? And speaking of which, I made the comment here that it seems that this episode had a lot of juxtaposition of goblins with green moons. I'm not sure if I just never noticed it before in the previous episode, but in this episode, there were at least 4 or 5 different scenes that utilized, having the green moon as a background while a goblin was in the foreground. So, not quite sure what they were trying to convey there, but I guess, like I said, they have to resolve the situation of the green moon sometime. And I guess one final thing I want to comment on, which I also said in the closing thoughts of the episode, which is in regards to the gods and the dice and whatnot, and what Goblin Slayer actually is. So, is Goblin Slayer actually just a normal person? And I'm reading too much into the situation. My original theory was that he was kind of blessed by the gods or something, and that was why he could have, he had this glowing red eye, which I assumed had some kind of magical property, as well as maybe have some reason as to why he is able to continue on with his goblin slaying, whether he's specifically blessed by the gods or something. And we know that this entire series is sort of like a portrayal of Dungeons and Dragons, right, including all the dice rolling. So I was wondering if this was, in a sense, some kind of, blessing by the gods, and so the dice that he rolled would always have a good outcome. But judging from a lot of comments that I've received on the videos, apparently I'm reading too much into the situation, and there's no such thing at all. And all that talk about, the gods and dice and stuff, they're just flavor text. So, is that true? I don't know. I still haven't committed to reading the light novel or the manga. I think I might find some time and pick up the manga. I did read a few chapters of it after I finished watching the episodes, and it seems fairly well drawn. In fact, I think some of the visual imagery might be better, I guess you could say, than the anime, especially, for instance, the human shield part from the last episode. I feel like I did go back and read it, and I feel like the manga gives it a lot more shock, right? Obviously, this might also be it might also be because of the censorship that animes generally have. They can't draw gore or blood and stuff as prominently as they can in manga. But again, I think maybe some of the questions that I have, I can find the answers in the manga. Or if some of you can comment down below and tell me, like, what the heck this entire situation with the gods and dice is about. So, yeah, I guess that about sums up this episode. Fitting conclusion, I guess. Not exactly an epic conclusion, but I guess there wasn't really much more that you could do here. Yeah, I guess that's about it. I mean, it was a foregone conclusion. We knew he was going to repel the attack on the village. So, again, I'm not quite sure how the animators could have done something more. Oh, I did like how the spirit guy handled his opponent, right? Uh, Speaking of which, during that fight scene, he seemed to like completely stop moving for a little bit, and yet the chain thingy, the chain weapon didn't actually hit him. I'm not quite sure if he actually, moved his head, or if we're using a D&D analogy, he simply rolled the dice and his dodge was higher than the hit point, the accuracy of his opponent, right? So it could also be something like that. I don't know. In any case, if season 2 comes out, I definitely will continue to check it out. If not just for trying to see how the author manages to keep this series or this topic relevant, even though he's still mostly just fighting goblins, and of which we've pretty much seen all of them already, unless there's some other hidden classes of goblins that we haven't been introduced yet. So, in any case, that has been my review of Goblin Slayer so far. Let me know if you have anything else you want to add on, whether you have anything to comment on my theories or stuff. And as I said, if I find enough topics, things to talk about, I will do a review later. So with that said, this has been Mavri, and I'll see you guys next time. Happy New Year's!